Shalom Aleichem. This is a tribute to Arava Chosid, Arava Goin, Reb Yoel Kahan, Reb Yoel ben Reb Rafal Nachman HaKohen Kahan. This is a very hard tribute to make because Reb Yoel was a personal Rebbe, Hasidus teacher, Mashpia, and in a way a friend, although I'm so much younger than him. But his care, his love, his Avas Yisrael, his Gutzkeit, his goodness, his good heart, felt like he was a friend. There's so much to say about this unique person, literally a person who was blessed in all aspects of mind, heart, and practice. And many people know about his phenomenal memory, being a chayzer of the Rebbe, remembering all the siches and all the maimorim from the first day when the Rebbe began sharing his holy mouth of Torah with Klal Yisrael after the Histalkos, the passing of the Frierdiker Rebbe in January 1950. Rabbi Yoel already recorded, even though he came after the Shiva, he arrived in America, but he was the one who recorded the stories that Rebbe said during Shiva, which he heard from others, and the Rebbe approved them, and they were later printed for eternity. So from that day on, he was recording the Rebbe's Torah, and b'schusa, in his merit, we have so much of the Rebbe's Torah today, all of the Rebbe's Torah, much of the Rebbe's Torah. That's one aspect, his memory. Then there is his havana, his understanding, his depth, his hamoka. And of course, who could forget his hasbara, tremendous way of explaining things. If I may say so, I don't believe anyone else had a better hasbara than him to explain Chassidus to all, especially to young, budding minds, teenagers, high school students, Mesifta Bacharim, and non-Lubavitcher Chassidim, Polish Chassidim, Ungarische, Hungarian Chassidim, Litvische, to be able to do brain surgery, to go into your mind and to show you how you might think this is the explanation and why it should be so and so, and he would show you no, why that is not the way to understand it properly, and specifically in another way. And we can spend hours talking about all that, and it's all true. But I want to talk about the time, the 5 to 6 years that I spent as a student from 1978 to 1984, hanging out with him, spending time with him, eating privately with him and his wife, Rebbetzin Leah Zilzi Zayn Gesund, at his house, walking down Kingston Avenue, taking us a half an hour to go from his house on Montgomery to 770, because every few steps he would stop and explain something else or talk about something else and respond to something else. And I had many conversations with him, not just in Chassidus, trying to understand Chassidus, and he explained it and this way and that way, but also about the current events of the time, both in Lubavitch and outside of Lubavitch. We discussed that too. He shared his views, and he shared the way to go about understanding an issue. And that, you might say, was another major accomplishment of his, along the lines of the brain surgery that I told you about a moment ago. It included teaching the student how to think. And that is so important, and it's very seldom that you have a teacher who actually does that, and that's a real good teacher. And he excelled in that area, teaching us how to think. And again, not only in thought, related ideas, of intellectual, in the intellectual realm, but also in the emotional realm, in the practical realm, how to assess a situation. But that's also not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about and share is the Shabbos table that I merited being at many times and what I saw there. And this will be the first of two parts. It's Hashem. The respect that I saw between him and his wife was phenomenal. For example, whenever his wife brought food to the table, for him a portion and for me, he would not begin eating until she sat down at the table. Now you might think that what's the big deal? It's basic derech eretz. It might be basic derech eretz, but how many of us do that? We're hungry, we're tired, we're nervous. He's there with me and he wants to converse and he wants to share. You start eating, you start talking. No, we were talking, but no eating until she sat down. The way she addressed him was with ultimate respect. I remember she would say, "Mein Mann." She's talking to him and she would say like, "Mein Mann," my husband, but with a glitz in her eye of awe. I saw that. And that didn't mean that she couldn't say, I think that this is maybe not the way it is, and maybe stop this and do this. Husband and wife, they talk to each other. There was no defense mechanisms in there talking to each other. Yet it all felt to this 19-year-old young man awesome, respectful, reverence. His Ahavas Yisrael. People don't talk enough about his Ahavas Yisrael. So I'll share a little bit about his Ahavas Yisrael. I know someone here in Borough Park who needed their daughter to go into a certain seminary, a Chabad seminary, and she had not studied in Chabad schools, and the normal system was that if you didn't study in a Lubavitcher high school as a girl, to get into a Lubavitcher seminary took protectia, took pull, because the background was missing, and the menahel and the principal were concerned she wouldn't fit in. So this person, spoke with Rabbi Yoel and said, could you help me try to get my daughter in by calling the menahel? And he said, sure, without a blink of the eye, sure. And he called the menahel and they accepted the daughter. Now, without going into the girl was a good girl and she was worthy of that seminary. But the fact that he was willing just to pick up the phone and make the call, and without any questions, to help another yid. Another example. I know someone who had a situation, was a divorce, but the husband didn't want to give the get. And Rabbi Yoel got involved and he tried talking to the husband and impacting him and convincing him, influencing him he should give the get. All just for the cause. I have a friend, one of my classmates, Rabbi Yoel told him, you can come eat by me for Shabbos. He says, for Shabbos, you can come eat the Sudas and the meals. And then he said, and in fact, you can come eat by me every night. And it wasn't just a joke that he was saying, he meant it. Another example, someone who wasn't yet religious somehow met Rabbi Yoel, and Rabbi Yoel said, come, live in my basement. Again, he lived at that time on Montgomery Street. I don't know how he pulled it off, whether he paid the rent to the landlord to use the basement. I don't know those details. But the person told me that Rabbi Yoel had known that he was seeing a non-Jewish girl. He had a non-Jewish girlfriend. Rabbi Yoel didn't mention anything about that. Just come live here. Meanwhile, he ate with him, and slowly but surely, he let go of the Goyish girlfriend, the non-Jewish girlfriend, and he became a Lubavitcher, a Frum Yid, etc. The examples go on and on. The point is that because he was a Yid, that Gashmias, that material matter, honor, covet, was the furthest thing from him. He didn't know what it meant, covet. Money. He had no shaykhs to money. He had no didn't care about money. It doesn't mean he didn't know what a dollar bill is and a coin is, but the importance and what money means to the average person and to the average Yid and to the average chassid was beyond him. And I don't say this to make him into a tzaddik. I'm not coming from that. We're chassidim. We're talking about refinement. We're talking about edelkeit. This is a Yid who lived with the Eibishter. He lived with God and the Rebbe. The Rebbe for Rabbi Yoel, and this is what he taught us as bocherim, as students, was the central communicator of the Eibishter. Eibishter is the one. Moshe Rabbeinu communicated the Eibishter's words to Bnei Yisrael. Rabbi Yoel communicated to Lubavitch Chassidim for sure, and to Klal Yisrael, the Rebbe's words, to understand properly the Rebbe's words. And that's why when he got up and he spoke, everyone listened. Everyone listened because we all believed and knew and understood that he's not fadrein the Rebbe's words. He's not changing the Rebbe's words. He doesn't have his own personal agenda. Was he perfect? Did he never make a mistake? No one's perfect. Yes. Everyone makes mistakes, but mitzidoi, from his side, he was genuine. So we look back now. He was blessed with 91 years arichas yomim, and particularly the last 25 years or so, 27 years since Gimel Tammuz, he merited that his farbrengens and his shiurim and his conversations were recorded for eternity. So there's so much out there. But when I called him before a gutzkeit, a zizkeit, sweetness, goodness, that's the type. He was a nice person, a person who you could sit and joke with if you needed to, you could cry with. Did you ever imagine that he would put his hand around someone? Well, he did it, I'm not bragging, just telling you, he did it to me several times out of love, and not when he was shikar, intoxicated because he drank a lot of mashke, just out of his feeling of varmkeit. So on this video, I hope that my listeners, my viewers, will walk away with knowing this, that this is emes and a fact, not because I'm the great versteher, it's because I'm telling you what I experienced myself. And those times that people might have seen something otherwise, weiß ich nicht, I don't know, and I'm convinced that that's not the real Rabbi Yoel. From Gimel Tammuz on, Gimel Tammuz was a very difficult time for us and for him in particular, and only him. Why? Because everyone else had something else they had in their life, whether it was a child, whether it was an agenda, whether it was a business, whether it's money. He didn't. At Kahan, ein zach, or not ein zach, he had only one thing: Rebbe. Rebbe, Rebbe, Rebbe. And it begashmias, because he didn't have children, and he didn't have money, and he didn't have honor. So vasat nor gahat, Rebbe. So when the Rebbe passed away, Gimel Tammuz, it was a major issue to him, and he wasn't the same Rabbi Yoel that I knew in 1979 and 1881, but nevertheless, the nekuda, the point of him being the Rebbe's meturgaman, translator, interpreter, funnel, and the Rebbe's chassid, and an isha Torah, and an isha halacha, and an isha v'avas Yisrael, all that was the same. All that was the same. In other words, the style changed a little bit in various ways, and I'm not going to go into all those details now, the style changed, but the mahus, mahu, the essence was the very same. So the Eibishter helfen that we should continue teaching and living with those teachings that he shared in the name of Torah, in the name of the Rebbe, in the name of Chassidus, and Rabbi Yoel ben Rabbi Fol Nachman HaKoyim should have the Kitzu and the Aner Sheikh and the Offer, V'hu B'Teicham, B'Zeicha to the Tchias HaMeisim, Mamish now, Amen v'Amen.